Now, how high should you actually hang your tree stand? After being on properties, looking at client properties, it's crazy. I've seen some raised shooting houses that are 30 feet in the air to 35 feet in the air. I've seen some stand locations that were 40 plus. Just crazy. There's certainly a point of safety, obviously, with how high you hang your tree stands. But really, I want you to consider some different points about how high you should hang a tree stand and kind of what I go through. And I've migrated to where over the years I've gone down a little bit in the overall height. For example, it used to be back in the day, and I'm going in through the 90s and in through the early 2000s, a lot of the 2000s anyways, using 14 tree steps, screw-in tree steps. We always like the Gorilla Magnum type size, or the Ameristep Grizzlies, I think they call them, maybe. But they're a large tree step. And we would screw those in. And if I used 14 with my little stubby legs, that would get me up to about 24 feet in the air, somewhere around there. So our average height was, I would say, 22 to 24 feet up. That allowed us to go above slightly the stand, step down into it. And over the years, I've come down a little bit from that. But I wanted to point out, number one, the hardwood angle. And what's interesting, if you look right here on the board, let's say the stand was 25 feet in the air. And a deer is right here. Well, yeah, they have to look up a long ways at a very steep angle to actually notice you. But you take this deer and you put him out here at 100 yards, that angle drastically decreases. So a deer's eyes that are looking this way, you're really not that far off the ground. Then it boils down to movement. And it wouldn't matter in that case if you're 35 feet in the air, if you're 15 feet in the air, you're close to the ground. So really, a larger tree, not moving. I love to sit when deer are coming, and I like to shoot when I'm sitting down. And that keeps me out of the deer's eyes as a figure of a man sitting on or standing on a tree stand. I think that standing figure, or if you're standing and you're resting your legs like this, on a platform, you say you're facing the tree. If a deer watches you and sees you standing, that's got to be the most horrific figure in the woods to a deer, something that'll alarm them to no end. You're a blob in a tree sitting down, you're not moving that much. I actually like using my phone because I'm looking at it like this. I've written articles on my phone, published videos on my phone out in the woods, but it keeps me from moving. I just stare down and you hunt with your ears. So consider that hardwood angle. Regardless of how high you get, when you get 100 yards out. So I always love tucking a tree stand around the corner of Conifer, tucking a tree stand behind a hillside, using the elevation change to hide you, as opposed to just thinking, well, I'm just going to go higher in the tree and that'll keep me from being seen. A lot of times when you're being seen and when you're hunting, it has nothing to do with the height of the tree and the stand you're in. I mean, to a point, obviously, if you're 6 feet off the ground, that's a lot different than 22, 20 feet, 25 feet, whatever it might be. But it has to do with you moving in the stand and choosing the wrong time to actually draw your bow or move to fire your weapon. And a lot of times, really, it boils down to you can get away with a whole lot if you're moving very little. You're facing the deer coming so that it can actually see you. You can see them way before they can see you and not move. And then I love to shoot from a sitting position because I don't have to stand to grab my bow. I don't have to stay standing all the time. I don't have to stand up and sit down in the open hardwoods, or a mature buck could pick me off from 200 yards away because it barely looks like I'm off the ground at that point. So really consider that hardwood angle and really think about that as far as not only how you hide yourself in the tree or the height, but what you really need to do to be an advanced hunter and move on the prey when they're not going to see you. And actually it boils down to a lot of hunting skill as opposed to just moving up higher in the tree stand. I find it in open hardwoods, if I'm on a climber and I'm out on public land, a lot of times I might be in that 24 feet up, 22, 26, somewhere around there, because I'm just climbing the tree. It's easier to go a few more feet. I'm considering the shot angle. Obviously, I like to be at that sweet spot of 25 yards for a shot, maybe even 30 with a bow, because that gives me a good angle for the shot, actually for penetration. I like that type of an angle. I don't want to be so close that a deer is right under me and can hear me draw, see me move around, with the thought that a few more feet lower isn't going to matter, or higher. It's really going to boil down to how much I'm moving and how I'm choosing to make that shot. So often when I'm in open hardwoods, I'm right at that 20 to 22 foot level, right around there. I'm using a 20-foot ladder stick. Sometimes I use another step to get into a tree, but I'm right around that, anywhere from 20 feet to 22 feet. That's where I migrated down to from 24, 25. So not much over the years, but that's about where I'm at. That's also a good length for the safety line, for the lifeline from Hunter Safety Systems that we use. That's a really good height to where you can use a pretty high diameter tree and still have enough rope left to go above your stand and use that lifeline safety. And I advise you use a lifeline. Doesn't matter if you're 40 feet up or 10 feet off the ground, you have to use that lifeline. Obviously in a conifer, I have several spruce tree stands and white pine. Love that cover. And what I find myself in those is I just don't get up as high. I don't need to. I can be very quiet in the stand, and again, I'm in a sitting position. I'm trying to shoot sitting down. I'm not moving around that much to even get the shot. So I find when I'm in conifer, I actually take my stand location and that overall height down a little bit. So in conifer, I find myself moving more to 18 feet, but I'm still more than 14 feet up. I'm more in that 17, 18, 19 range instead of possibly 20 to 22. And I just like that. I feel like I'm already concealed. I don't need to get off the ground anymore. Once you think about the average, the thermal myth. The thermal myth right here. If this tree stand is up here, let's say it's at 40 feet and it's right up here in this location. The thought is if you're 40 feet in the air, that you're going to be above the thermal line and your thermals are going to be rising. So the higher you are in the tree, the deer aren't going to wind you. And I think that could be the case if that deer is close to the tree here and that scent's blowing down over the top of them. That might help for that close up. But at some point, those deer are going to scent you. And it might be, especially in flat terrain, that scent's still going to blow out here. Might blow into here. Maybe it misses this area right here, but it's going to hit the ground somewhere. And so you have to be very concerned that you can't ever cover up your scent. You can't cover up your scent regardless of what product you're using, what kind of scent contraption, what kind of gel, powder, spray. If a buck's downwind of you, a mature buck, they're going to smell you. And you can't cover up that scent if you go to 40 feet instead of 22, instead of 26. And at the same time, of course, you're putting yourself into a lot more danger at that point. I hunt from about 20 to 22 feet on average, 18 on those conifers, and that's my average height right around there. And I shoot a lot of big bucks from a lot of small trees. I don't know if you guys saw the one, it was a secondary rut muzzleloader hunt in 2018 where Dylan and I were together and I shot a nice buck with a muzzleloader then. That thing came, for one, it was almost at eye level and 25 yards away, and I was in a conifer, skinny conifer, to where when Dylan and I moved, the tree moved. And after I shot that buck, it came back for a second shot not that long later, right below the tree, and I was able to, Dylan was almost hanging off the tree, getting a shot behind the tree, down like this, leaning back, and I had turned around all the way and shot that buck right down below the tree and put a killing shot on it. And that thing was actually still following that doe. It was still rutting, and I believe that's what kept him on his feet, was that urge. He was on that doe. He didn't want to let her go even when he was dying. And but bottom line, very close shot. The tree I shot the buck out of this year was about 18 feet up in another conifer. He was at a very low angle. If I shoot down to the west out of that tree, it's about a 25-foot drop because the elevation changes. And where I shot him, it probably went up 5 feet. So I was probably shooting him at a level of 13 feet in the air. And still, because I was sitting down, I first saw him at 25 yards. I was able to turn to my right in that stand and get the shot off. He was really literally only 10 yards away, 13 yards, somewhere around there. And I had to move to my extreme right to get the shot while he's closing the distance in from 25 yards down to that. And so you don't have to be that high in the stand. And that's what it boils down to. What I want to leave you with this talk really boils down to hunting skill. You can't overcome the lack of hunting skill and your ability to get a shot off when the deer is looking away from you. If you're standing too much to get a shot, a lot of times when you're standing, you become more fidgety. It's easy just to move around, especially when you're cold. You don't even realize you're doing it, as opposed to just sitting there trying to get that quiet, easy shot just right in front of you, not moving. If you have to move from one side of the tree to the other, if you're standing up, you're going to alert and spook a lot of deer. So think about that. Really, the question you should be asking yourself is, how low can I get away in this tree and use my hunting skills as a predator so that I don't spook these deer? That's the real question that comes to mind. Not what is the perfect height, is what I can get away with, and how low can I go and improve that shot angle on the deer if it is close and not spook deer. Again, you have to consider the hardwood angle. Conifers, you can go a little bit lower. Really think about the myth of thermals, that if you're higher, they're just not going to smell you. They're going to smell you somewhere. Your scent's just going to hit further out. And then finally, make sure that you're taking advantage of the skills that you're honing as a hunter to not move. Hunt with your ears. Make sure, I love, again, shooting sitting down, because I have to take less movement to get that shot off, and it keeps me still when I'm in the stand too. And again, I love hunting with my ears, so that helps a lot too, as opposed to having to look around all the time. But bottom line, guys, be safe. That's the most important. In all of this, use a lifeline, check your stands, use quality stands so they're quiet, again, helping you with your hunting skills. But above all, and everything you do, be safe when you're putting these tree stands up. And that's one of the most, worrisome things, other than clients using chainsaws that aren't familiar with them. Just hanging stands. I really worry about clients hanging stands and putting those in place. And I always encourage them to use every precaution that they can, and really using that lifeline and paying attention to that overall height will help you a lot. And it'll keep you hunting for many years safe and secure. And bottom line, I hope you guys shoot a buck this fall, and that you're using the height of the stand that's appropriate for the area to help you get that big buck this season.